بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه الطيبين الطاهرين. I ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to grant us all the sincere intentions. The author, may Allah have mercy upon him, said, or rather it says, قال المؤلف رحمه الله: وكذا يكفر من شتم نبيا أو ملكا أو قال أكون قوادا إن صليت، أو ما أصبت خيرا منذ صليت، أو الصلاة لا تصلح لي بقصد الاستهزاء. So the author rahimahullah said, likewise we charge with blasphemy, kufr, the one that insults a prophet, the one that swears at any prophet of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, or an angel, or says, I would be a pimp if I prayed. Or he says, nothing good has ever happened for me or to me since I started praying. Or a person says, the prayer is not proper for me. If they say this with the intention of belittling the prayer, then this is, of course, kufr. Let's explain that. الشرح أن من شتم نبيا أو ملكا يخرج من الإسلام، ولا فرق في سب الملك بين أن يكون ذلك الملك جبريل أو عزرائيل أو غيرهما. The explanation is that whoever swears, insults a prophet or an angel exits al-Islam. And there is no difference about swearing at an angel between if that angel was Jibreel, or whether that angel was Jibreel alayhi salam, Azrael alayhi salam, or an angel other than them, any angel. Insulting any prophet or any angel is kufr. ومثله الذي يقول أكون قوادا إن صليت فإنه استهزأ بالصلاة واستخف بها ولذلك يكفر. والقواد هو الذي يجلب الزبائن للزانيات. Unlike this person, i.e. in having committed kufr, is the one that says, I would be a qawwad, a pimp, if I prayed. For indeed this person has belittled the prayer, has mocked the prayer, and has belittled the prayer. This is why he commits kufr. And al-qawwad is the one that brings customers for the prostitutes. Al-qawwad الذي يقود الزبائن إلى الزانيات. The one who drives or guides people to the prostitutes for them to commit obscene acts. So if someone says, if I pray, then it's like me doing that. Of course, this is kufr. This is insulting the prayer which is this grand, glorious, blessed deed. Someone would compare it to bringing men to prostitutes to commit zina with. أعوذ بالله أعوذ بالله من الكفر. وكذلك الذي يقول ما أصبت خيرا منذ صليت. Likewise, if a person says, I've nothing good has happened to me since I started to pray. Intending by this to belittle the prayer, to knock the prayer, to stab at the prayer. So this is kufr. ومثل ذلك قول بعض العوام صم وصل تركبك القلة. Some people, they claim, and like this, i.e., what is kufr, is the statement of some of the lay people. They say if you fast and you pray, then poverty will overcome you, or poverty will ride you. Literally, it will ride you. It will mount you. That if you pray and you fast, then you're going to become poor. This is said to belittle praying and fasting. So this is kufr. وكذلك الذي يقول الصلاة لا تصلح لي بقصد الاستهزاء. Likewise, it is kufr if a person says, the prayer is not proper for me, the prayer doesn't suit me, the prayer is not appropriate for me, if they intended by this statement to belittle the prayer. أي إن أراد بذلك الاستهزاء بالصلاة، وهذا حال من يلهج بهذه الكلمة عادة. This is kufr if a person intended by that statement to belittle the prayer. And this, Shaykh Abdullah said, and this is the state of the people that utter this statement. That this is usually the state, this is why they say it. But somebody might say this statement, as is going to be mentioned now. أما لو قالت امرأة حائض الصلاة لا تصلح لي، وقصدها أنه لا تجوز لها الصلاة في أيام الحيض، فإن ذلك ليس ردة. However, if a menstruating woman said, the prayer is not proper for me, so in this state while she is menstruating, and this is true, and she intended that it's not permissible for me to pray in the days of my menses, then this is not apostasy. Because it's true, she's not allowed to pray. It's not permissible for her to pray in that state. وكذلك لو قال ذلك إنسان مبتلا بسلس البول جاهل لا يعرف أحكام السلس يظن أنه لا يصلي في حكم الشرع حتى يذهب عنه السلس فلا نكفره. Likewise, this is the case, i.e., it wouldn't be kufr if a person who was afflicted with incontinence of urine, so droplets of urine, they continuously come out, perhaps once every 3 or 4 minutes, every 5 minutes, every once in a while, like that. So if a person was afflicted with this, and this person was ignorant about the rules of the religion, they didn't know the rules, that there are certain rules that such a person can make wudu and they can pray in a particular way. So they thought that they are not obligated to pray until this condition, until they're free of this condition. They thought that. So they said that the prayer is not proper for me. Okay? Such a person is ignorant, but we don't call them a kafir here. Even though they went against the rules of the religion. In the religion, they need to pray. But out of this person's ignorance, they thought that in this condition, they do not need to pray. So that's why they said, the prayer is not proper for me. We don't judge them as a kafir. We teach them that no, this is not the case as you're saying. قال المؤلف رحمه الله أو قال لمسلم. So again, now the Shaykh is mentioning more examples of kufr statements. أو قال لمسلم أنا عدوك وعدو نبيك، أو لشريف أنا عدوك وعدو جدك، مريدا النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم، أو يقول شيئا من نحو هذه الألفاظ البشعة الشنيعة. Among the kufr statements is for a person to say to a Muslim, I am your enemy and the enemy of your Prophet. This is kufr. Or he says to a sharif or a sayyid, somebody from Al Bayt, somebody from the lineage of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, a sharif. If someone says to such a person, I am your enemy and the enemy of your grandfather, intending by the grandfather the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. Or he says something among these ugly, distasteful, vile statements of kufr, anything like that. الشرح أن من ألفاظ الكفر المثبتة الشرح أن من ألفاظ الكفر المثبتة للردة أن يقول شخص لمسلم أنا عدوك وعدو نبيك، والاستخفاف في هذا ظاهر، فلذلك يكفر قائله. The explanation is that among the kufr statements that confirm apostasy, or in other words, among the kufr statements, okay, is for a person to say to a Muslim, I am your enemy and the enemy of your Prophet. Belittlement in this and mocking in this is very apparent, is apparent. For that reason, the one who utters this statement is charged with blasphemy. وقد قال العلماء منهم أبو يوسف القاضي بكفر من سب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. قال ابن سحنون المالكي من شك في كفره وعذابه كفر، فإن كان هذا في ساب النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فكيف في ساب الله تعالى. And indeed, the scholars, among them Al-Qadi Abu Yusuf, the judge Abu Yusuf, he mentioned that the one who insults the Prophet, the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wassalam, the one who insults him becomes a kafir. And Ibn Sahnun al-Maliki, a Maliki scholar, he said, whoever doubts about the blasphemy of the one who swears at the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, whoever doubts about the blasphemy of that person and about his torture, himself becomes a kafir. And so if this is the case about the one who swears at the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, then how about the one that swears at Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala? وكذلك يكفر الذي قال لشريف أي لإنسان حسني أو حسيني أي منسوب إلى الحسن أو الحسين اللذين هما سبطا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أي ابنا بنته فاطمة، قال أنا عدوك وعدو جدك. هذا إذا أراد النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بقوله جدك، عندئذ يكون قوله هذا كفرا. Likewise, we judge as a kafir the one that says to a sharif, i.e. a person who is Hassani or Husayni, i.e. this person who is attributed from the lineage of Al-Hassan and Al-Husayn, who are the grandchildren of the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wassalam, i.e. they are the two sons of his daughter, Lady Fatima radiyallahu ta'ala anha. Whoever says to a Sharif, a descendant, I am your enemy and the enemy of your grandfather. And he intends by that, by the word grandfather, the messenger, the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. Then this is kufr, of course. أما إذا أراد جدا له أدنى ولم يرد النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فلا نكفره. As for if a person intended a grandparent that is below the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, not the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, then this person is not, we do not charge him with kufr, blasphemy. وكذلك كل لفظ يدل على الاستخفاف بالنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أو إلحاق نقص به عليه الصلاة والسلام أو بالله كالألفاظ التي تدل على تغير مشيئة الله الأزلية، كأن تدل على أنه شاء في الأزل حدوث شيء ثم غير تلك المشيئة، أو تدل على أن الله كان علم أن هذا الأمر كذا ثم علمه على خلاف ذلك، فهذا كله كفر. فمن الألفاظ الكفرية قول بعضهم كان الله يريد أن يخلق فلانة ذكرا ثم خلقها أنثى، وعكسه، فإن في ذلك نسبة الجهل إلى الله ونسبة تغير المشيئة الأزلية، والله لا يجوز عليه التغير في ذاته أو في صفة من صفاته، لأن التغير علامة الحدوث، والحدوث ينافي الألوهية، وما يوهم ظاهره من النصوص خلاف ذلك هو متأول لا يراد به ذلك الظاهر. So the Shaykh said, Subhanallah, the Shaykh said, likewise, every statement that indicates belittling the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, or attributing defects to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam in the way that we mentioned, or Allah, mocking Allah and attributing to Allah what does not befit him, like the statements that indicate that the eternal will of Allah would change. This is kufr. Like for someone to say a statement that indicates that Allah eternally wills something to be, and then that supposedly changed his will. That change is a sign of weakness. The will of Allah doesn't change. Or someone said a statement that insinuated that Allah knew a matter to be such and such, and then he knew it later to be different. All of this is kufr. Among the blasphemous statements is the saying of some people, Allah willed to create a girl as a male and then created her as a girl, and the opposite. Indeed, in this there is an attribution of ignorance to Allah Ta'ala, and the attribution of changing of eternal will to Allah. It is impossible that the will of Allah would change. It is impossible that the self of Allah would change, or that any attribute amongst his attributes would change, because change is a sign of being created. Change is a sign of occurrence, and occurrence negates godhood. Occurrence means for something to start, for an event to happen, to begin, and that is contrary to godhood. And in the religious texts, the apparent, that there are some religious texts in the Quran and the Hadith, the apparent meaning of some of the religious texts that would perhaps allude towards a meaning that is different to what we mentioned. So, something in the Quran that someone might look at and they might understand from its apparent meaning, they might understand from it that the will of Allah changes or that Allah learns something new and so on, then you should know with certainty that it is to be muta'awwal. It is to be interpreted. It is not taken for face value for that. It is not taken to mean that which apparently it suggests. لا يراد به ذلك الظاهر. Okay, let's see. يا رب. طيب قال المؤلف رحمه الله, the author said, وقد عد كثير من الفقهاء كالفقيه الحنفي بدر الرشيد والقاضي عياض المالكي رحمهما الله أشياء كثيرة فينبغي الاطلاع عليها فإن من لم يعرف الشر يقع فيه. The scholars, they put together numerous things, like the Hanafi scholar Badr al-Rashid and the Maliki scholar Al-Qadi Iyad, may Allah have mercy upon them. They put together many things in this regard in terms of kufr statements to warn people at the time, at their times. So a person should look into that, because the one that does not know evil falls into it. الشرح أن بعض الفقهاء من شافعيين ومالكية وغيرهم ذكروا كثيرا مما هو ردة وأكثرهم تعدادا الحنفية. The explanation is that some of the scholars among the Shafi'is and the Malikis, as well as others, mentioned a lot of what is ridda. They gave examples of what would make a person a non-Muslim. And the most, in terms of the number of cases mentioned, this came our way uh, from the Hanafis, the Hanafi scholars. They were, let's say, the pioneers in giving examples of this. So the earliest scholars that you will find are the Hanafi scholars who gave examples. If somebody said this, then this is the judgment. If somebody said that, if somebody did that, if somebody believed this, if somebody like this. And so the Shafi'is copied from the Hanafis, like Rawdatul Talibin, the authoring of Al-Imam Al-Hafiz Al-Nawawi. You see that it has a lot of what the Hanafi scholars mention, sometimes word for word, a lot of times word for word actually, of what the Hanafi scholars mentioned. The scholars would do this at times when they saw in their time that there are certain practices that are corrupt, or certain statements that the silly people are uttering that contradict the rules of Al-Islam. Then they would warn against these statements so that they don't spread. And they would record them and they would mention them. So people would be warned against them like that, as the different epochs as the different centuries passed, each century saw different statements that people would say, and the scholars rose up to the responsibility that they have, which was to clarify to the people the wrong statements. Like in our times also. Our Shaykh, radiyallahu anhu, he was not the first to do what he did in these times. He had good role models, of course, in the hundreds of scholars that wrote books and warned against these issues, the issues that existed at that time. And they gave examples to people also, so they'd be warned. How else would people be warned? أما بدر الرشيد فهو فقيه حنفي من أهل القرن الثامن الهجري ألف رسالة في ألفاظ الكفر. As for Badr al-Rashid, he was a Hanafi scholar from the 8th century. He authored a treatise about kufr statements, and he gave many examples, and I saw this myself. وأما القاضي عياض فهو مالكي توفي في القرن السادس. As for القاضي عياض, كنار على علم, he's known. He was a Maliki who passed away in the 6th century. كل من المذاهب الأربعة ألف بعض فقهائه رسائل في بيان الكفريات. All of the four schools, some of the scholars within them authored treatises clarifying the kufr matters. لأنه كان ظهر في عصورهم كلمات بين الناس هي كفر فأرادوا إنقاذ الناس من خطرها فألفوا تلك الرسائل وهذا من أفضل الأعمال لأن في ذلك إنقاذا لمن حصلت منه تلك الكلمات من الكفر إلى الإيمان من الكفر إلى الإيمان وتحذيرا لمن لم يقع فيها حتى لا يقع فيها. Now, why did they do that? As I explained, it's because in their times, statements appeared between the people that were kufr. So they wanted to save the people from the danger of these statements. So they authored treaties, works in this regard, warning people. And this is among the best of deeds, saving people from kufr. Because in that, a person would be saving those people that fell into these issues, saving them from kufr and bringing them to the correct belief, al-iman. And warning those that did not fall into them, alhamdulillah, those that did not fall into these matters, warning them so that they don't fall into them. قال المؤلف رحمه الله. So this is a rule that summarizes most of what we mentioned before this in terms of belittling. والقاعدة أن كل عقد أو فعل أو قول يدل على الاستخفاف بالله أو كتبه أو رسله أو ملائكته أو شعائره أو معالم دينه أو أحكامه أو وعده أو وعيده كفر فليحذر الإنسان من ذلك جهده على أي حال. والقاعدة, the rule or the principle which we follow is this. This is the golden rule, if you will. That every belief, every action, every saying that indicates or that actually entails belittling Allah, this is kufr, or belittling his books, this is kufr, or belittling his messengers, his angels, the matters that have a high status in the religion. The rules of the religion, the different laws, the promise of Allah, paradise, the threat of Allah, whoever belittles the promise of Allah, which is paradise, or belittles the threat of Allah, which is the threat of torture and punishment in hell. Any belittling of that, any of that, is kufr. So a person should be warned and they should be cautious. They should exert themselves against this in every situation. Should exert themselves not to fall into this in every situation. They should be aware. الشرح أن ما كان دالا على الاستخفاف والاستهزاء بالله وأمور الدين هو كفر. Explanation: that whatever denotes or suggests whatever is belittling and mocking to Allah, mocks Allah or belittles Allah, or the matters of the religion, it is blasphemy, even if it was done for a joke. أما ما كان فيه إخلال بالتعظيم والأدب مما هو دون الاستخفاف فإنه حرام كمس المصحف من غير وضوء. As for what is, as for what contains, so an action, let's say, that contains a lack of the proper glorification, which doesn't reach the level of belittling. It's a lack of the proper glorification. Then this is haram, sinful, but not kufr. Like what? Like touching the book of the Quran without wudu. Touching it is not kufr, because that's not considered to be belittlement. Rather, it is a lack of the proper glorification that should be had with the Quran, for the Quran. So it is sinful for a person to do that. وَالْعَقْدُ مَعْنَاهُ الْاعْتِقَادِ. The word aqd used above here, it means belief. So any belief that indicates belittlement to any of the matters mentioned. وَالْمَعَالِمُ جَمْعُ مَعْلَمٍ والشعائر جمع شعيرة والمعلم بمعنى الشعيرة وهو ما كان مشهورا من أمور الدين كالصلاة والحج والزكاة والأذان والمساجد وعيد الأضحى وعيد الفطر كل ذلك يسمى شعيرة من شعائر الدين ومعلما من معالمه. So معلم or معالم and شعائر, they have the same meaning. معلم is معالم, المعالم is plural of معلم, and الشعائر is plural of the word شعيرة. And المعلم, it means شعيرة. It means the same thing. And they mean whatever was known, whatever is famous, if you will, whatever is well known of the religious matters, like prayer, Hajj, Zakah, the Adhan, mosques, Eid al-Adha, after al-Hajj, or during al-Hajj, wa Eid al-Fitr, after Ramadan, 1st of Shawwal. All of that is called a sha'ira, among the sha'air of the religion, the glorified matters, the matters with the high status. And they're also known as a ma'alim. Every one of them is known as a ma'alim among the ma'alim of the religion. Okay. Okay, I hope that's clear. Does anybody have a question up to there before we go on to the istithna'at? before we go into mentioning the exceptions. Okay, great. الله. مم. طيب نبدأ نكمل. قال المصنف: وقال الفقهاء: يستثنى من الكفر القولي حالة سبق اللسان، أي أن يتكلم الشخص بشيء من ذلك من غير إرادة، بل جرى على لسانه ولم يقصد قوله بالمرة. So now we're going to talk about situations in which a person might utter a kufr statement, but this person, although this statement is kufr, this person wouldn't be judged as a kafir because the situation that occurred with them was one of the following. Okay, usually remember, if a person was to utter a statement, it doesn't matter whether they were angry. Yes, let's say they were angry, or they were joking. Let's say they were joking. If they utter a statement of kufr that they understand, they know what it means, then just by them uttering it, okay, like for example, if somebody said about themselves, if they said, I am God, then they understand this statement. They weren't narrating it from anybody else. They meant to say it. We judge this person as a kafir. We have to judge this person as a kafir because they understood the statement, they know what it meant, and they said it. They weren't narrating it from somebody else. No, no, they said it. They weren't forced. No, they said it. Even the lay Muslim must call that person a non-Muslim. Even the lay Muslim must consider this person to have committed kufr by them saying, I am God. This is a statement that carries in the English language only one meaning. But for someone to say in the Arabic language, An Allah, to say Ana Allah, that I am Allah, this is a kufr statement. And such a person, therefore, is not excused because they didn't fall into any of the categories that we're going to mention. They're not excused. This is explicit kufr. This person, you say to them, say the shahada. قُلْ أَشْهَدُ أَن لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ وَأَشْهَدُ أَنَّ مُحَمَّدًا رَسُولُ اللَّهِ. Also, it's important to note nowadays, there is unfortunately a trend amongst many people who are closer to being wolves in the clothing of sheep. These people, they have done so much damage. To please people who do not understand and do not appreciate our religion, to please them. Some people, a lot of people who claim to be knowledgeable people but are not, they say that if somebody commits kufr, if they say something kufr, then we judge the statement to be one that is blasphemy, kufr, but we don't charge the one that uttered it with being a kafir. They say that we call what that person did, we call it kufr, but we don't call that person a kafir. This is not permissible. It's not permissible for a person to say that yes, this person committed kufr, but I can't call him a kafir. The scholars documented how a person who is a non-Muslim, who commits a kufr act, or a kufr saying, how he is judged as a kafir. He is called a kafir also. Our Shaykh gave many examples. الذي يشرب الماء ماذا يقال عنه شارب. The one who drinks water, what do you say about him? Sharib. He's a person who drinking water. الذي يجلس على الأريكة ماذا يقال له؟ يقال له جالس. الذي يتكلم يقال عنه متكلم. الذي يأكل يقال عنه آكل. الذي يرتاح يقال له مرتاح. الذي يختار يقال له مختار. الذي يطبع يقال له طابع. الذي يكتب يقال له كاتب. طيب الذي كفر لا نقول عنه كافر. الذي كفر نقول عنه كافر. The one that commits kufr, we call him a kafir. There's no barrier that shields or protects, or any religiously considerable barrier that protects this person from being uh, called a kafir. He's a kafir. خرج من الإسلام وهلك. So that's something to be aware of. If you hear some people in the Arab world saying أنا لا أكفر الكافر, some people in the Arab world, they say that. They say, I don't call the kafir a kafir. But you just did though. You just did. بقولك أنا لا أكفر الكافر تكون سميته كافرا ثم أنكرت تسميتك له كافرا. ما هذا يا للغباء. Likewise, in English, sometimes some people you might hear them saying on social media, we judge the action or we judge the statement, but we don't judge the one that uttered it. As though to say that that is reserved for Allah Ta'ala. No, the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he made that clear. He said, مَنْ رَأَى مِنْكُمْ مُنْكَرًا فَلْيُغَيِّرْهُ بِيَدِهِ. If you see an evil, then you call that out. You put a stop to it. Okay, someone might say, well, the Prophet said he put a stop to it. He didn't say call the person, a kafir or call the person sinful. Well, the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam said that if a time comes where the people, they fear saying to the unjust person, Ya zalim, أو شك أن يعمهم الله بعقاب, that a general calamity would befall them. If people are afraid collectively, they are afraid of saying to the unjust person, Ya zalim, then there are consequences to that. Meaning what? Meaning we can say Ya zalim to a person. We can say, oh, you unjust. And what is the biggest injustice? It is kufr. Allah يقول ولا يرضى لعباده الكفر. الله لا يرضى لعباده الكفر. وهو الذنب الذي لا يغفره الله تبارك وتعالى لمن مات عليه ويغفر ما دون ذلك لمن يشاء. So don't be fooled by these people that say that we do not call the person who does a kufr, we don't call him a kafir. The Islamic law isn't something that is very different in terms of it having rules, in terms of laws in general. Yani, uh, so if somebody was to if somebody was killed and they knew who did it and they wanted to put him on trial for murder, for manslaughter, this person had the intent, but then the court it ran its defense or it predicated its defense upon, well, no, you can't call him a murderer. He did it, but we're not calling him a murderer. Hmm? He stole, but we're not calling him a thief. Hmm. Ridiculous. Where is it? How is it people come up with this? And you know the thing in Arabic, there's a word. يقولون التحذلق. فلان يتحذلق. It means he's trying to be smooth. He's trying to act clever. He thinks he's really smooth and intelligent. They speak as though they know, as though they've reached a level that other people haven't reached. So they give them this look of, it's okay, you don't understand. It's okay. We understand. And then they make up ridiculous yani, claims, claiming that they are from the religion of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Sayyiduna al-Awza'i, Abdul Rahman al-Awza'i, he said to Ghaylan al-Dimashqi, Ghaylan al-Qadari, when the Khalifa asked al-Awza'i to debate Ghaylan al-Dimashqi al-Qadari. So Abdul Rahman al-Awza'i, he told the Khalifa while Ghaylan was there, the Khalifa asked al-Awza'i, so what do you think? What is your judgment of this man? What did al-Awza'i say? He said, Kafirun wa rabbil ka'bati ya amir al-mu'mineen. Subhanallah. He said, when he asked for the verdict of al-Awza'i on Ghaylan al-Dimashqi, he said to him, what is your verdict? He said, he is a kafir. I swear by the Lord of the Kaaba, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, or leader of the believers. He called him a kafir. لماذا؟ لأنه كفر. ولو مهم. So that's important to understand. It's important to know. Someone might say, what gives you the right? You. What gives you, who is not a scholar, what gives you the right to call somebody else a kafir? Well, there are some matters that are so clear that every Muslim should know. Because of the iman that they carry in their heart, they would know that they are kufr and they wouldn't doubt about it. Like what? Somebody takes the book of the Quran and stamps on it. Somebody takes the book of the Quran and spits on it. Somebody takes the book of the Quran and they, وَالْعَيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, urinate on it. Are you going to say, oh, that's kufr, but I'm not going to dare call this person a kafir. I leave the judgment to Allah. You serious? You serious? If somebody struck your father in the face, would you say, oh, okay, This person, yes, he did something bad, but I'm not going to label him as, I'm not going to label it as assault. I'm not going to say that he was a person who committed a crime. I'm not going to call him a criminal over that. I'm going to leave the judgment to Allah. It doesn't work. These proofs are very, very simple, and it doesn't have to, and it's not more difficult than what I'm telling you. It's just that بعض الناس يتحذلقون يتعالمون. They pretend to be ulama, and they give you things, and they tell you things that they delude one into thinking that, oh, there must be so much more that I don't understand. Some people might even say, oh, I'm just dumb. I don't even know anything. Oh, yeah, these scholars, هؤلاء الناس, these people who misguide others, la'anahumullah. Some people might think, oh, yeah, they're so knowledgeable. Yeah, obviously, they know oceans more than I do. They must know so much that they're just summarizing it for me. One might say, dumbing it down for me, like an idiot's guide. No, yeah, Allah. Like the person who says, I am a kafir. This is kufr, isn't it? Yeah. The person who says, I am a non-Muslim. The person who let's say was a Muslim, and then they said, I am a non-Muslim. This is kufr, isn't it? Anyway. وقال الفقهاء يستثنى من الكفر القولي حالة سبق اللسان. Oh, we read this, didn't we? So the scholars said, what is considered an exception from the verbal kufr, from kufr statements, where a person wouldn't be judged as a kafir for uttering a kufr statement. They wouldn't be judged as a kafir. What's that situation? حالة سبق اللسان. The situation in which a person has slip of the tongue. Sabaq al-lisan, the tongue slipped. I.e., they said something among the kufr statements. تكلموا بشيء من ذلك أي مما ذكر من الكفر من غير إرادة, without intending to. They did not intend to say it. Rather, it ran across their tongue while they didn't at all, بالمرة, they didn't at all intend to say it. This is called slip of the tongue. Like when you want to call one of your children, let's say, you want to call, let's say, Khadija. So you say every name under the sun other than Khadija. Is she not your daughter? Yes, she is. Didn't you raise her? Yes, you did. Haven't you said her name 50 million times? Yes. Have you lost your memory? Perhaps partly. But no, not to the extent that you'd forget your daughter. Huh? Khadija. You call her Fatima, you call her Zainab, you call her Juwayriya, you call her Sulaim, you call her yeah, Fakhita. You call her every name. You even call her your son's name. Yeah, you even call her Muhammad once. Why? Because your tongue slipped. Sometimes you might get to the point it just doesn't come out. You want to call, you say every name and then you say, you come here, because it just doesn't come. The name doesn't come. Huh? So either. So if a person uttered a kufr statement, but they had intended to actually say something completely different, like if someone was talking about fish and they said, I'm gonna eat this, okay, and they meant to say COD, cod, Okay, but instead, without them intending, they said God. So instead of saying, "Oh, I really want to eat," or instead of saying, "I'm going to eat this," and then saying the word with a COD, "I'm going to eat this cod," they accidentally said, tongue slip, they said, "I'm going to eat this God." That would be a kufr statement, right? And that person said it, right? Yes. Do we judge them as a kafir? No, of course not. If they said the statement, if they said, "I want to eat this God," and you look at them, what are you talking about? They say, "Oh, what? I mean, cod. I don't know how that happened. I meant codfish, cod liver oil, and whatever, whatever, whatever." So they say, "I didn't mean to say that at all. I didn't mean to say that statement. I meant to say cod. I can't do my words out of my mouth. Cod." So then you believe them. You say, "Oh, okay." So you don't judge them as a kafir. You don't say, "Oh, no, no, you came out your mouth. You said it now. Oh, get the noose." No, no, you don't do that. Metaphorically, get the noose, of course. No, you wouldn't do that because this person didn't, it was a slip of the tongue. Like what happened with that man. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam gave an example. He said there was a man, a real example. He was stranded in the desert. He lost his ride, he lost his camel, and he's in the middle of the desert. He sat down and he started to comfort himself, to accustom himself with the idea that he's going to die. Suddenly, his camel appeared and he entered what resembled a state of euphoria. He was so happy. He's going to live. He's going to live. He wanted to thank Allah in that situation. So he said, "Ya Allah." He said, "Ya Allah, you are my slave and I am your Lord." He called Allah his slave. But the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wassalam, that this was because of his dahsha. This was because he was astonished. He was overwhelmed. His tongue slipped. His tongue slipped. Subhanallah. These are actually, if you think about that scenario, in that scenario, that person's tongue slipped twice. Twice. Not once, twice. He said, "Oh Allah, you are my slave." That's a kufr statement. And he said, "And I am your Lord." A'udhu billah. Two statements. His tongue slipped twice. But you can understand how that would have been easy to do if a person was surprised or shocked. It's like when the mouth, it goes ahead. It goes ahead and then the brain's not yet caught up. The brain knows that it's got to say, or your heart, that's it. It knows that you've got to get this notion, this idea out. Sometimes it comes up in the wrong order. Subhanallah. Sometimes you hear the strangest slips of the tongue. Strange. Sometimes even yourself, you might have the strangest slip of the tongue. Strange. You think, how did that happen? Shows you you're weak. Shows you you are weak. About that emoji, you said, is it permissible to use the emoji with two palms that come together as a supplication or prayer? like many non-believers do, I would avoid that. I don't know the Muslims to have ever done that. So I would avoid it. I would avoid it. There are practices that only the non-Muslims do, so we avoid them. We avoid them. I know which one you mean, where people put both palms together. Yeah, they put both palms together where and their fingers are pointing upwards, right? Yeah, I don't know why people do that. I don't know why people put that up like that. Hmm. The second state, وحالة غيبوبة العقل أي عدم صحو العقل. So a person, the second situation in which a person might say kufr and be excused, I not be judged as a kafir, is the state in which their intellect, or let's say that their consciousness is absent. Okay. Like for example, عدم الصحو العقل. Like for example, if the intellect was absent, they're insane. An insane person might say something kufr, but you reprimand them. You say, don't say that. You say, okay, you say to them, don't say that. حالة الإكراه. Hmm, do we do it now? Thinking. No, I think we'll do حالة الإكراه next time. Okay. So we're on page 116. We need to move through these matters pretty quick. Thinking حالة الإكراه. Hmm. Actually, no, we'll do it now. Subhanallah. هيا بنا. Uh, the third matter, the third situation in which a person is excused from being judged as a kafir despite having uttered kufr. And we'll go through this in a lot more detail, inshallah, later. But right now, halatul ikrah, it is a state of being under duress. It is a dire state of being threatened in a particular way. So we're going to mention that in what way that is. Or being forced, being coerced. Okay. Hmm. So it says, وحالة الإكراه فمن نطق بالكفر بلسانه مكرها بالقتل ونحوه وقلبه مطمئن بالإيمان as Allah revealed in the Quran غير شارح صدره بالكفر الذي يجري على لسانه فلا يكفر. So if somebody threatens another person that they will, how do they say it? That they will unalive them, and a person believes that that other person will carry out this threat. Okay. For example, it's not somebody, it's not a child who is holding, I don't know, a cotton bud that says, if you don't say Jesus is the Son of God, then I'm going to do such and such. No, it's a person who the person threatening is one that one believes will carry out this threat, will carry out the threat, and it's realistic. And the threat is that that your soul will come out of your body. That's what's going to happen. It's going to be the end of you. So with death, they threaten a person with death. In this situation, if a person is given a particular statement to say, like the kuffar tell a Muslim, say Jesus is the Son of God. Otherwise, we will do what I mentioned earlier. So if a person believes that they will do that, so the threat is real, then in this scenario, they can say that statement, they can utter it on the tongue, while their heart is content with belief, while their heart is hating of that kufr that is running across their tongue. This person does not commit kufr. So this is in this scenario when a person is threatened with being killed. The threat is imminent. Like if somebody held what sometimes you might see in films, people hold to someone's head and then they pull the trigger like that. However, if a person was threatened, if a person said to a Muslim, say Jesus is the Son of God, otherwise I'm going to pull your nail out, it's not permissible for a Muslim to say that statement. If someone said to a Muslim, say this kufr statement, or else I'm going to crush your finger with a hammer. It's not permissible for the Muslim to say that statement. Why? Because that doesn't lead to death. That's not being threatened with death. Likewise, if a person was to say, if you don't say this statement, then your children are going to get it. Or then your mom or your dad, or they're going to get it. No, it's not permissible for a Muslim to say that statement. Why? Because they're excused when the threat is on them. And it's a specific threat as well, not like, oh, just pulling a nail out or hammering your. No, no. Okay, so that's a summary. That's a summary. Inshallah, in the future, hopefully, we'll go through perhaps these topics. There, I know that there is a benefit to learning online, but some of these topics they need to be in person. Some of these details they need to be in person. So those of you who have your uh, centers available, you have in your localities, you have your centers, you have the Jama'iyah centers, then do not fall short in attending them. Truly, do not fall short in attending them. The blessings that are present there, they are immense. Right. Lastly, okay, this one we will do next week. Inshallah. The one about حالة وحالة الحكاية لكفر الغير, narrating kufr that someone else said. Okay. Okay, we're going to stop here today. Inshallah. Barakallahu fikum. Uh, okay. نهلل. Let's say لا إله إلا الله and الصلاة على النبي. لا إله إلا الله. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. رب اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات. رب اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات. رب اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات. Okay, mashallah. We did today. بارك الله فيكم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.